All right, so this is where we're going to build out this particle system to shoot off the bullets of our turret. So we're back in our animation scene here, and we're going to just drop in a cylinder so that we can have something to emit with our particle system. I'm going to go and just move this over so we can see it a little bit, and then we'll just apply the scales of 0.1, 0.1, and then 0.3. Something like that is a good starting point. And then our emitter object, so we need something to emit. We need something in our scene to essentially shoot off these particles from. So I have this emitter object in here already for us. It's going to be a flat surface on the top. If you notice, we can hide it, and then we see the barrels, but this is going to be our emission object. So we're going to go down to our particle properties. And all we have to do is to get a particle system going is just hit plus right here. And immediately when we start hitting play, we'll start seeing something, right? So now we have some particles. So just real quick, this area inside of Blender is, you can specialize. There are people that specialize in industry and just effects animation, which is essentially particles and simulations. So, you're not going to be a master after just these couple settings I'm going to show you. Again, as I talked about earlier in the course, Houdini is really where most people are doing their particle systems and stuff like that. And then you can use your Blender skills with Houdini. And they're not, replacing each other by any means. For me, like doing basic modeling, texturing, shading in Blender, and then doing more high-end stuff like particles, effect simulation, that kind of stuff in Houdini is typically what I end up doing. So first things first, we'll need to actually set up the object. So we'll go down to our render. We'll switch our render as object. And then down here we get instance object. So we'll just go ahead and pick our cylinder right there. And now what we should see is our cylinders are emitting off there. By default, the scale is going to be really low. So I'm going to do something like 0.5. And now we can actually see that. We're going to need to fix the rotation. So if we rotate this 90 degrees, you'll notice that it doesn't actually do anything, right? The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to need to apply this 90 degrees because the particle system is not going to look at these transforms, right? The location and rotation doesn't matter for the particle system because it's creating its own. So if we want to set the default ones, what we have to do is apply rotation. And you can see, okay, now it's done something. It's rotated it, but we're going to need to come back here and I'm going to go to my emitter object. I just went back to frame 1 right there. I went to my emitter object and we'll go back to particle system. And now we'll just simply turn on rotation. So now what we'll see is now it's actually going to be rotating with that particle system. So they're going to be essentially, some are going to be on this way, some are going to be going that way. Great. And then essentially we have some velocity that we need to do. So velocity is going to control how fast this thing is going. And in velocity normal attribute, basically the normal is going to be the direction it's pointing off the polygon. And we're going to essentially crank this up to something like 80. There we go. And then you can kind of tweak that. There's certainly a lot that we can do on top of this. We get them to collide, that kind of stuff. I'm going to skip over that. This is really just a basic introduction. Some more settings just to familiarize yourself with. Things like frame start. We're just starting on frame 1, end frame 200. We have things like seed. So if we want to do some randomization, if we want to increase or decrease particles, say if we want just to do less of them, we can just do something like 10. Cranking that up. So you can see now we have something like a Nerf gun. I'm going to just do the default value of 1000. Lifetime is going to be how long the particle lives. So right now we're saying live 50, and then live randomness is going to be, they're all going to be essentially disappearing at the same time. And then we'll just wrap it up right there, and then we'll get into rendering next.